Stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. No proclamations or presentations to make this evening, so we'll jump right down to item 4 on the consent docket. There are 5 items for us on this consent docket, including our regular meeting agenda minutes, our executive session minutes, a water line easement to be accepted, a professional services contract for engineering services on our CDBG grant, and approval of a budget amendment to accept a donation of funds for the police department. Counselors, any questions, comments, or motions on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. We vote of 5-0. The consent docket is approved. All right. Public hearing on items not scheduled, or public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. I think we have a couple. I'm sorry, I got to sort these out because some of them might be for the council and some of them are for later. I think these are all public comment. The recycling ones are on SUA, right?
Yes.
Yep. I don't know what this is. I don't think that's an agenda item. Is Beverly McDonald?
Yes.
Did you have comment on an agenda item, specific agenda item, or just a general comment?
I want to talk about that recycling.
Okay, we'll save that for the
SUA
meeting. Thank you. All right, so nobody signed up for general comment at the Stillwater City Council meeting, so we will jump down to item 7, the actual public hearings. And item 7A has received public comment regarding a request from SC Retail Management LLC, the owners of Slim Chicken, for a map amendment to rezone a portion of property at 1011 North Boomer Road from commercial general to residential 2-family multifamily. This is CC-19-130. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, we double checked the sign too.
Okay. Ms. Dennison? Maybe. Maybe not. What's that? Oh, she's on her way. Hi, Paula.
I think you're waiting on me.
No,
My
you know.
apologies. We're confirming a public notice issue, which is good. We're good.
We just discussed that.
Okay. Give me just one moment. Map amendment, Boomer Road.
That's the one we're on.
We have a request, this had come before you back in June. Unfortunately, after it came to City Council, it was discovered that the notice was not proper. So it started all over again from scratch with all the new notification, the trip back to the Planning Commission, and now to the City Council. The property is that piece that's owned by Slim Chickens, behind the Slim Chickens site and the high school, right along Husband Street. This is an overview. The property in question is outlined in the lime green, and you can see there's Whataburger, Slim Chickens, and then Freddy's. This is Boomer. And then over on the east side is Husband Street. This is a view of the property from the the Slim Chickens parking lot, looking toward the corner of the high school property toward Husband Street. And then this is looking directly east across the property toward Husband Street. I would be happy to answer any questions. They are seeking the rezoning from the general commercial to the residential 2-family and multifamily district, so the RTM district.
Thank you, Paula. Counselors, any questions for Paula at this point?
I'm kind of wondering, Paula, if you can explain the Planning Commission decision?
Yes, ma'am. Let me get to that folder. So at the Planning Commission, this last Planning Commission meeting with their recommendation that's coming to you, they based their decision on a number of things. One, the public that showed up concerned about the development of this property in residential, where all of the properties in this, almost a triangle from Franklin to the Boomer-Husband intersection, all of that property is either commercial or school property, and it's developed in such. So they're concerned about residential in this area as the only residential on that side of Husband Street up to Franklin, and they're concerned about the height and the traffic, the height of the building and the traffic along Husband Street, that this would impact that. And they did have a little bit of a discussion because they did have some citizens in opposition to this request at the Planning Commission meeting.
Paul, I don't remember from the last meeting how many units could actually go in that.
I believe they were looking at 2, 3, probably no more than 3 duplex units. So it was, they were considering
So
a
single-story
duplex
duplex.
development.
Okay,
Single story.
single story though.
They could do single or 2-story
Okay.
in this zoning district. They
Okay.
could do either one. Single story, it would be quite a bit harder to get the longer structures on the property than it would be to get a single footprint and go up. Property is quite small.
To a maximum of 30, what is it, 35 feet for residential 2-family? I think,
Yeah.
yeah. 35.
The
I answered
two-
my own question, Paula, thanks.
Okay,
I
great.
saw it, I was
Thank
looking
you
for
for
this piece
doing
of
that.
paper that I couldn't find, I found it.
Anything else for me?
Counselors? Thank you, Paula.
Okay, yes, thank you.
At this point, I will open the public hearing. We have one person signed up to speak, Renee Rule. Please state your name and address for the record and let us know what you think.
My name is Renee Rule, and I live at 1315 North Husband Street. As a concerned neighbor of the parcel of land on North Husband Street located northeast of Slim Chicken's restaurant, I am opposed to the proposed rezoning of said property from commercial general to 2-family and multifamily residential. I respectfully ask for no zoning change on this parcel, not because I'm anti-growth, but because I am an enthusiastic supporter of smart, planned urban development. I am not against the development of this property. However, it should remain commercial, and these are my most compelling reasons why. Number 1, the proposed rezoning of this property is not compatible with the surrounding properties. To the west and south are 3 commercial fast food establishments. To the north is the Stillwater High School campus, and to the east, across North Husband Street, are primarily single-family homes stretching from Boomer Drive all the way north to Lakeview Road. The basic purpose and function of zoning is to divide a municipality into residential, commercial, and industrial zones, with the use of property within each zone being reasonably uniform. A 2-family or multifamily residence does not fit into the uniformity of this neighborhood. To rezone this property to residential would be a prime example of spot zoning, which can be detrimental to a neighborhood. The other land in the immediate area is zoned commercial, housing Freddy's, Slim Chickens, and Whataburger. The same should apply to the adjoining land. My reason number 2, there is no circumstance justifying the rezoning, meaning there has been no change in the neighborhood that justifies the rezoning from commercial general to 2-family and multifamily residential. Anyone who has been to this neighborhood knows that it is it is well established, with older homes, beautiful trees, and commercial businesses conveniently nearby. With ample properties around that would be better suited for a multifamily residence, why choose a parcel of land in a commercial zone? Therefore, keeping the best interests of the community in mind, adhering to the standards set forth by our city's master plan is prudent. For the foregoing reasons, I urge you to vote against this proposed rezoning. As noted, I am not against the development of this land. In fact, I am for it, but it needs to remain zoned commercial for the betterment of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Very much. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak on this item, so I'll go ahead and close this public hearing. And I will ask Paula to come back up and let us know what the Planning Commission's final decision was.
Yes, the Planning Commission does send a recommendation of denial of this request with a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Paula. Councilors, further discussion? We discussed this briefly when it came up prior, and I'm glad that we were able to get better notice out and have some input from folks. I think we've talked before. I mean, we like the idea of mixed use and when we can get it, but I certainly see the concerns that while this, if we could create a mixed use over a broader piece of this area, it might make sense. But there are, I think, some legitimate concerns from the public around just putting this one little residential piece in the middle of the area. So.
I'll make a motion to accept the Planning Commission recommendation and deny the requested map amendment from CG to RTM at 1101 North Boomer Road.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny this zoning request. Please vote. With a vote of 4-1, with Councilor Wedlake.
That's a mistake. I'm a little off my game today, so.
Do we need to? That's a first. We haven't had a wrong button push yet.
Yeah, my coffee was in the way apparently. My vote would be yes, Liz.
No, he's telling you what his vote would be. So
Okay.
It passed anyway, so.
It did. So we'll call that a unanimous vote to deny the zoning request.
Thank you.
Get it together, John.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Item 7B, receive public comment regarding proposed closing of right-of-way that extends east and west between Duncan Street and Husband Street, and the right-of-way that extends south from 8th Avenue to mid-block on Block 34. This is CC-19-132. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dennison.
Yes, thank you. We have a request to close the rights-of-way within the Block 34. What is in the blue hatched area are the existing rights-of-way. There is a full block length running east-west, and there is a half block length running from 8th Avenue south to the east-west right-of-way area. And here's an aerial view of the area that would be encompassing. There are some utilities running through the center of the block, and those are, at this point in time, potentially going to be removed with development of the block. Electric has been taken out already. There is a sewer main that runs through there, and depending on what development needs are, the relocation of that sewer main or potentially the abandonment of it. So it is not coming into play at this time because with the city still owning the block, just closing that right-of-way just removes it from public purposes and does allow a vacation which will allow development on top of this right-of-way area. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilors, any questions?
Motion to approve the request to close the,
We have to do a public.
Oh,
I have
oh,
to-
gosh.
We don't have anybody signed up, but I will open the public hearing.
I'm
And
sorry, I'm off my game.
close the public hearing. I'm the one on the antihistamines tonight. I figured I would be out
It's
of.
catching.
Okay. All right, so I will open and close the public hearing as we don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Paula, is there a staff recommendation?
Staff recommends approval of the request. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I think I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to close the rights-of-way within the interior of Block 34.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the closing of these rights of way. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the item is approved. And takes us to 7C, receive public comment regarding a request to close 12.5 feet of right-of-way on each side of Southwest Street from 4th Avenue to 6th Avenue. This is CC-19-131. Paula.
Yes, thank you. This closing request comes to you for a 2-block area, the 400 block and the 500 block of Southwest Street. So in the hatched area from 4th to 6th, the request is to close equal amounts on both sides of the right-of-way. So 12.5 feet on each side for a total of 25 feet. The current right-of-way is 100 feet wide, so it would reduce it with the full closing to 75-foot wide right-of-way. The street does fit within that 75-foot right-of-way. What I have up on the map for you tonight, the 4 yellow stars, the applicant who is requesting this closure along the full 2 blocks, that's the property that they own. When the report came out, we thought they owned 1. They actually have acquired 3 additional, so they own 4 properties. However, those properties are all within the 400 block, not within the 500 block. This is a view of 4th Avenue looking south, so looking through the 500 block towards 6th. And then here's 6th Avenue from 6th Avenue looking north. And you'll see right along 6th Avenue, those areas are zone commercial. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilors? In our form-based, this is partially at least within the form-based code area.
Yes.
How does the 75-foot wide, what would remain a 75-foot wide right-of-way affect what those street sections could look like in there?
Since we are right in the midst of developing the new street sections, then the new street sections are primarily going to be based, yes, right-of-way will come into play, but not solely like the current ones we have on the books do. It's also going to be anticipated development of that street and how much vehicle, pedestrian, or alternative transportation, alternate modes of transportation can be accommodated. I don't know if West Street at this point in time will be a primary thoroughfare for the multiple kinds of modes of transportation, or if it could be selected for other streets around, because not all streets, even with the widths that are out there of the right-of-way, are going to be capable of accommodating all modes of transportation. Roundabout way to answer your question, I don't know.
Do you know what the streets are to the east and the west?
Of course, Duck is, the Knobloch, and I believe they're all going to be 100-foot width in through there. We rarely have anything over 100 feet. Duck could be the exception in this immediate area. And of course, 6th Avenue.
But the other two on both the east and the west side of this are currently 100-foot width?
This is an alley running between West and Duck, and also between Knobloch and West. So those alleys are going to be typically maximum 30-foot right-of-way in through there, more often than not 20.
And north of 4th Street will continue to be 100-foot width on west?
That is correct. Yes, because the request is only for 4th Street to 6th Avenue, 4th Avenue to 6th Avenue.
Why the request all the way up to 6th Avenue if the applicant owns property on the 400 block only? Just out of curiosity, do we know?
Potential for acquisition of additional properties in that block.
Okay.
Plus having it at least uniform from 6th Avenue to 4th. instead of a 100-foot and then a 75 just on that one block and then back to a 100-foot again. So they're looking at it from a couple of different perspectives. And
Was
I don't
there-
know if they're here and have signed up to speak.
Okay, I was just about to ask, was
I'm
there
seeing
any
a yes nod.
discussion with the people that currently own the property between the 500 and the 600 blocks?
I cannot answer that because staff, if there was discussion, staff was not directly involved in it.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, I can. Feel.
Please.
I visited with Mr. Gose, who I believe is going to speak in a minute, and I think they were primarily concerned about their client, the 400 block. Had previously been told by staff that, look, if you're going to do one block, it probably ought to be uniform, apply for it all. And they did have conversations with people in all of the blocks with the exception of the 500 block. So he is not opposed to it just being the 400 block of West to be. And I'm sure he'll tell you that in a minute.
That was my question. In our notes, it says that the applicant had conversations with people in the 400 block. It does not say owners of property in the block. And, you know, it's kind of, it's written kind of casually. Perhaps there was a more formal, organized conversation with people, but, I mean, just as kind of casual.
I assume there's no requirement of any other landowner's approval or joining in this request for something like this to happen? Because we're actually giving people land back, right?
Yes, we are removing it from the ability of the city to do things within that right-of-way and giving it back to the adjacent property owners. So it has a dual effect there. Typically, what staff recommends is conversation and concurrence with all of the affected property owners. And I don't know why or to what extent that conversation was held with those in the 400 block. And it doesn't sound like there was the reach out for the 500 block.
But there was notification, though.
Yes, there was notification sent to all owners of property within 300 feet of the 2-block request.
Any further questions for Paul at this time?
Actually, well, I have a question in the report, also in the third paragraph. It says that the redevelopment is anticipated to be in a manner similar to what is developed on Walnut Street. Have you driven down Walnut Street?
Yes, that will be the large 2-story housing with a tremendous amount of parking on the property.
Well, I drove down before the meeting, and it's just a mess. There's a large amount of parking all over the street, all over the property. If that's what they're trying to duplicate, that's kind of frightening.
Okay, well, we have a public hearing. So I will, at this point, open the public hearing. We have 2 people signed up to speak. Dwight Robertson. If you'd like to say a few words, come to the podium, give your name and address, and let us know your opinion on this issue.
It's Dwight Robertson. Thank y'all for hearing me. I live at 1320 South Lewis, down the street here, and I own the property adjacent to the where they're going to build something there in 417. And I don't understand all this legal mumbo jumbo and plats and easements and all that kind of stuff like that. All I'm here for is to find out what this means to me as a property owner, as adjacent property owner, and how it's going to affect my property rights. That's all.
All right. Well, we'll talk some more about that.
And no one has contacted us as property owners.
No one's contacted you to talk about the...
Absolutely. The only thing I've had is hostility from the guys, from the guy that's trying to work that property up, clear the, he's going to clear the house out and stuff like that. Every time he comes in, he's got negative remarks, and this doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction. So I just want a little clarification.
Did you receive notice that we were having a hearing about it? All right, good.
Thank you.
Good, thank you for being here.
Don't know anymore I did, though.
Well, we'll talk, we're gonna discuss the issue here in just a second. Thank you for being here. Stephen Gose.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant. Yes, this request is to close 12.5 feet on either side of West Street from 100 feet to 75 feet. It is consistent with what happened last year north of 4th, the 300 and 200, basically from 4th to Maple. We came in with a similar request last year for a parking lot that St. Andrew's Episcopal Church was doing. At that time, we'd requested a reduction to 60 feet because of bike lane paths going from 4th to west to 3rd. We went with a 75-foot to maintain the bike lanes that were, or bike tracks that were in the form-based code street sections at that time. So this request is to continue that uniform street section to the south from 4th to 6th. Initially, and as of earlier today, I had not talked to anybody in the 500 block. I finally got a hold of AEI Corporation, one of their partners who owns the majority of about half the property in the 500 block that fronts West Street. They didn't have any concerns with what we're doing. And that was my bad for waiting till today. It was just with timing and trying to get a hold of people. We couldn't talk till this afternoon. The one other thing to address the adjacent property owner's concern and Vice Mayor Darlington's, this is in the form-based code section, form-based code. The developers on these two lots on either side will honor the building setbacks. We've got some conceptual layouts that have all building on the frontage. The parking is accessed off the alley with parking lot contained behind the frontage. So there'll be units along the frontage of West Street. Parking will be shielded from West Street by those with access from the alley. So, any questions?
Stephen, the prior action you talked about was along West Street from...
Yeah, from 4th Street north all the way up to Maple.
Okay.
And that initial request came in just for the block from 3rd Street to Maple, but we added, at that time, the 300 block, 3rd to 4th, to address the concerns with the bicycle tracks that were in the form-based code section, because the pedestrian and bike corridor comes from the west on 4th, turns up West Street to 3rd, and continues east, because there's signals on 3rd Street from Duck and at Main Street to help with that traffic flow.
But your understanding is the 75-foot section still allows for bike lanes along that section of road?
Staff's currently in the process of redoing those street sections, so I don't know what they'll look like, but the current street section for 75-foot road in form-based code today has that bike track on it.
So can you explain a little bit more what your clients need for this extra 12 feet on each side of the road is?
It helps with density and allows parking. I mean, 12.5 feet gets you another parking spot and a half. It just allows more developable space, which ultimately will increase the land values. I mean, yes, it's beneficial to them because they can possibly get more density. It's beneficial to the city because we have more building, higher land values, that kind of stuff. So, and they offered to address it for the whole 2 blocks that they're, on their nickel. They weren't asking for help from anybody. So,
I'm curious if it is actually going to be developed like Walnut Street, which is multifamily.
So it's probably going to be more similar to the ones on the east side of Walnut, not the west side, because the form-based code, Walnut's not in the form-based code, so they didn't require basically 0 building setback. Here, the building setback's probably an average of 10 feet. It's like no closer than 5, no less than 15, or 3 and 12. It's one of those two, but basically 10 feet, 10-foot building setback. So you can't put off-street parking in front of these. All this parking will be accessed off the alley. And will not continue through or to the front property line. There'll be a building structure between there. And I think the buildings we had were, I don't know, 30 or 40 foot deep, perpendicular to the street.
In this form-based code area on multi-story residential, multi-family residential, do we have the recommendation restriction that the bottom floor is commercial?
We do not have that requirement as far as I'm concerned, or no, not concerned, but no. So this is intended to be all multifamily.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Gose?
All right, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Stephen. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak, so we'll close this public hearing and ask Paula for staff recommendation on this item.
Thank you. Just to address a couple of things. The requirement for anything other than residential on the ground floor, that is being written into the revised form-based code requirements. It's not in the overall total form-based code requirements. So that's one change, major change from the old form-based to the new form-based for private property that we have. In regards to the gentleman's question, Mr. Robinson, about what does it do to his property, the addition of property back to you increases the value of your property, also increases the taxes because you're paying for more of the property that you have. It would allow him to do additional things to his property because he would have that 12.5 feet of additional land in his front also. The staff is sending a recommendation of approval for the 400 block only. So reducing just the 400 block from 4th to 5th Avenues from the 100 foot to the 75 foot right of way.
Why is that? Didn't you guys recommend that they apply for both?
Yes. However, part of that recommendation goes to having those other property owners in agreement for the impact of what's going to happen in their front yards. And with not having that information, then we were very concerned that those property owners in that 500 block, all they had gotten was the notification of what the hearing was going to be and didn't necessarily know that their property was going to be impacted by this request.
Okay. Counselors, any questions for Paula at this point? Or other points of discussion? I want to ask about that first point you just made about commercial, first floor commercial in the form-based code. Is the idea that everywhere in the form-based code where multifamily is built, a commercial activity will be required on the first floor? Is that where we're going with that?
A non-residential activity on the first floor.
How many units are these multifamily? I mean, these are like fairly small, right?
This is actually a single-family structure, and it is set up as a house. It does not have separate dwelling units. So
everything they've built previously is all technically single family.
Correct. Yes,
Even
that's
though we've
correct.
talked about it many times that it's not really single family, but it's built under the single family rules.
Yes, it is built under the residential code, and it's also utilized by multiple, typically non-family related individuals, but according to how we define a dwelling unit, it is a single dwelling unit. There's just multiple bed bath combinations within it, not separate complete living quarters in one structure.
So even if those commercial first floor non-residential requirements were in place at this point, these structures wouldn't be affected by them?
That's correct, they would not.
Okay, counselors.
I think
Thoughts?
this really highlights the idea of getting our form-based code set, right? It's really challenging and discouraging to think about kind of this idea of piecemealing things together is hard when folks kind of come in before we have everything set. And I worry about the ramifications of having made these decisions kind of in this spotty way and affecting the overall outcome of this area and the kind of desired effect that we were hoping for in the form-based code. I guess we've already made some decisions along this right-of-way in terms of the street to the north. So maybe we're making a form-based code decision for this street tonight. If we continue with this way, maybe there's something to be said for that consistency. But I think it just really highlights to me and I'm sure frustrating for the developers as well, to not know what to expect as they're coming in and working on their development and redevelopment options.
I apologize to the developer and the engineering company because it is really difficult to do work like this. But I just, really, if you just drive down Walnut and see what it could be, it just, I can't see it.
But it's not in the form-based code either, so it's.
Walnut isn't in form-based code, I know.
Yeah.
But
I think Mr. Ghost had a comment.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. The intent is apartments, not single-family homes. So whatever staff may believe is coming in, it's not the west side of Walnut. It's probably going to be a lot more like the east side of Walnut. So, I mean, buildings on the front, building on the side, parking in the back, not single-family. These true multifamily, separate units, demising walls.
It's not a house where you rent out the bedrooms, in other words.
Correct. This is apartment. So whatever that does with the decision, this is purely, we're just trying to reduce the right-of-way for consistency for that entire 6th to 3rd. So just wanted to clarify that it's not single-family.
and the east side of Walnut does look better than the west side. Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. The only reason I came here is to find out if they're gonna move are they gonna place the new building closer to the sidewalk? I don't understand this, because if they do, I've got a shop back there. When I come out of that driveway, that's gonna cut down my line of sight for people on that sidewalk, for people going north like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And that's my concern. I'm sorry I didn't say that before we go.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So the concern about line of sight with folks coming out here. Now, with these setbacks, if we reduce the width of this street, Paula, that would allow them to build these buildings closer to the edge of the street itself?
Yes, it brings the actual setback from the right-of-way closer to the hard surface street by 12 and a half feet, or whatever the determination is for the closing.
And are concerns like that part of a later discussion when we have to approve plans for this? So those sightline discussions part of that?
Yes, they are.
I was going to say, but that's kind of offset by the fact that this is in the form-based code, which has a stipulation of, what is it, 10-foot offset from the street?
It does.
So I mean, we're looking at 2.5 feet closer total, right?
Well, but we're adding 12 and a half
12 and a
feet
half.
to their request.
Right, that's what I mean. But if we're closing 12 and a half feet on that side, but then you have to offset it by 10 feet, that's a net of 2.5 feet.
The offset currently is 20 foot from the right-of-way line. So removing,
So pushing the right-of-way line forward.
you're bringing it 12 and a half closer.
Okay, so there is no
Your
10 foot.
starting point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Okay. Further comments or discussion, counselors? This one is difficult because of, I think, the uncertainty of what actual development's going to happen along West, offset by the fact that we do want to create a consistent street width from 6th going north. I think it makes sense that we're consistent with what this street width looks like. But in terms of what actually happens and what ends up getting built, there's a lot to happen before then. And so it's hard to see what effect it's gonna have. Further comments, questions, motions on this item?
Well, I would just say that I can understand the want for uniformity here, but I think at the very least, we give the property owners between the 500 and 600 block an opportunity to understand exactly what this means. I mean, like Paula said, it can increase property values, but it also increases the taxes on those properties. So, I mean, with the owners of the 400 to 500 block properties, you know, I would be perfectly fine with the right-of-way closure there, but with...
Is that right? Would it actually increase the property tax? It's just an easement, isn't it?
Oh, it's right of way. It's held in fee by the city.
right of way.
So there's actually a transfer
They'd
of
actually,
property.
would there be any costs associated with title or
No, that's done by the applicant.
by the applicant?
It's done through a court order. If you vote to close this, then the next step would be an action in district court to vacate that portion of the right of way. And then when that's done, that court order serves to transfer title.
And that would do it for, and so that applicant, in terms of what the applicant would be taking on the costs associated with
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
Is that, okay.
But we had, Paula, you recommended just approving the
the one.
400 block? I mean,
Yes. The 12 and a half feet on both sides of west.
And not
just
going-
within that 400 block.
because the other owners had not been notified until today, except a person in the 400 block has not been notified, other than our notice.
Other than our notice, yes.
What is the effect of either denying part of it or denying all of it? Is there any, I know with some zoning issues, if we deny zoning, they can't come back for a year or that sort of thing. Is there any effect on?
No, there's no moratorium on any action that you take tonight. They could come back with a fresh application next week.
Sir, if that 12 and a half feet is given up in front of my property over there, does that mean that you're gonna have to move the curbs out 12 and a half feet and stuff like that?
No, sir.
It's all
No.
on the street, pay taxes, all right?
Yeah, so no, you don't own the street. There's a portion of your property, from the curb back, how far? From the curb into your yard, a certain number of feet, that's the city's right of way. And so you actually get some of your yard back in this scenario. You get 12 and a half feet of your yard, comes back to you, and the city gives up its right of way to that portion of your yard.
The street and the curb remain the same?
Yes, the street and the curbs and everything remain the same. I mean, I think given the amount of confusion around what exactly this is for some of the other property owners, I'd be more comfortable that we saw more information having been given to everybody along both sides of the block on 4th and 5th. And given that it seems like we can do that and maybe take some more time to get that done, and come back with a little bit better understanding from everybody about what this is going to look like, I would prefer that we do that we either table the request, and we table the request until further discussion happens with property owners along both blocks.
It probably would be wise to pick a date certain.
What's a reasonable time?
Stephen, do you feel like a month would be enough to get you guys to have those discussions? So what's our first meeting in October?
7th.
The 7th? So I'll make a motion to table this item until our October 7 city council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table this item. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, this item is tabled until our October 7th meeting. Thank you all for being here. That takes us to item 8, general orders. Item 8A, approve multi-year leasehold improvement agreement with RPX Technologies to repair and occupy the rock hangar at Stillwater Regional Airport, CC-19-128. Mr. Briegel, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you all?
Thanks for being here.
All right. The first item I'd like to speak about is what we call the rock hangar, the airport. The airport got its roots in 1929, and in 1936, the rock hangar was built as part of the WPA program and was essentially the first building on the airport. It's been there ever since. Sandstone. Sorry, can you hear me now? All right. Sandstone building, roof is made out of wood, pretty much just an old World War II building. It has sustained over its life multiple roof damage issues. 2011, I believe, was the last time the council was brought this issue. It appeared about $50,000 worth of damage was repaired. And then in 2015, another windstorm came and blew the roof off again. Current damages are estimated at $150,000 to $200,000. I do have a picture for you. It'll come up. This hangar has been sitting here. Actually, this is a 2015 picture, so really with more wind and other issues, it's continued to degrade. We have not had the capital to fix this, and it's continued to deteriorate. So one of the things that we've been working on, it's actually been a couple of years. We've been off and on speaking with RPX Technologies here in town. RPX is a sensor technology company, and they got their start at the Meridian Incubator, and they've grown out of that and now have, I believe, 13 employees, are looking to get even more space. They're I think have a 5,000 square foot space, and they're outgrowing it quickly. They've got multiple divisions from airplane mechanic type sensors all the way down to they're now getting into construction type sensors. They've also deal heavily with the military and some contracts with them. And so they're interested in this building. One, it gives them space. They have multiple corporate aircraft, and they are wanting to occupy this and fix it back up. They are wanting to actually front the repairs. And again, we're estimating between $150,000 and $200,000 in exchange for 10 years in this building rent-free. And so when you do the math, it's a pretty good deal for both sides of it. It's about a 7,700 square foot building. They've got a pretty aggressive schedule to get it done. They've already got contractors in place, and they're wanting to have this up and ready to use by the end of December. And so with that, they're going to be able to not only store their corporate aircraft, but also because of the unique design of the structure, it's open span roof with wood. They're allowed to also, or they're able to test some of their electronics that otherwise would have interference with a metal structure. So one thing they are going to add to this is hurricane strapping to keep hopefully this roof from coming off again. As part of this agreement, at the end of the 10 years, will have an option to renew for additional 4 5-year terms, so an additional 20 years. However, at that first renewal, they'll start paying $600 a month rent back to the airport. And so starting year 11, if they choose to renew, the rent will start coming towards us, and then there'll be a CPI adjustment annually for that. This was taken to the Airport Authority on August 22nd, I believe, and was unanimously approved. We've worked with our legal and city management also, and we all recommend that this go through. Happy to entertain any questions.
Councilors, any questions for Mr. Priegel?
I don't have a question, but boy, what a great, I wish we had more opportunities to work out things like that, where it's a building that needs to be repaired, there's a business that it fits that, they can do it, and it's a win-win for everybody. So I'm smiling because there's actually a win out of it. So.
Well, it does sound almost too good to be true.
Well, it's in writing, so.
It's in writing. What could go wrong?
They're taking on the expense of repair, and so they've got. In fact, there's even a clause in here that if they don't get the repairs done in time, we can void the deal. So I feel like we've through our legal counsel vetted just about every scenario we can to try to make this as safe for everybody as involved. There's always going to be risks, but I feel like that we stand to benefit quite substantially from this investment. I will also say the potential, the way RPX is growing, the potential for economic development, not only their business off airport, but there's a lot of space around this building. So if they needed room to expand in the future, we have ample space for them to do that as well. And anytime you bring a business, whether it's, obviously they'll be basing all their aircraft here, and so that's going to help the airport through more operations, more fuel cells. Also, you got to understand with their nature of their business, they're going to be doing some testing inside this facility. We understand that that's going to probably bring in some clients that might use our commercial air service or at least frequent our airport. So we feel like it's a really win-win.
What would the rental value of this hangar be if it was not decrepit at this point?
So the last rent, it's been vacant since 2015, and the authority sets those rates, but the last rate was $135 per plane, and it held 5 planes. So that translates to roughly $8,100 a year. And so we did the calculations on that, and between $150,000 and $200,000, it would take between 18 to almost 25 years at that rate for the city to repay itself if we were to invest that same money in those repairs. On the flip side of that, just without any CPI increase, just taking the 600 over that 25 years, which starts, like I said, in year 11, the city would see $108,000 profit off of that, or revenue, I mean.
Okay. So if they make the repairs and don't renew the lease, we don't have any obligation to pay them for any of those repairs, right?
No.
That's all becomes property of
It
the
all
city?
reverts back to the airport.
So really, if $150,000 over the course of the first 10 years, that's like $1,200 a month in rent that we're getting off the deal. Seems like a good deal. Councilors, any further questions for Mr. Priegel on this item?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval of the lease of agreement between the Stillwater Regional Airport Authority and RPX Technologies.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this multi-year leasehold improvement. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the lease is approved. 8B, approve a lease agreement with Quality Aircraft Maintenance, who operates Hangar 1 at Stillwater Regional Airport. Mr. Priegel.
Yes, Quality Aircraft Maintenance has been on the airport since 2016, originally brought in by Paul Hendricks and his brother. They've owned and operated it up until this summer, which time they sold all interest to Scott Miner. Scott is now the sole operator and owner of that business. They maintain a maintenance overhaul facility in Hangar 1 and are in good standing. This was initially going to be just a lease transfer. However, when we really got to looking at it, we just felt like it would be a smoother transition just to go ahead and do a new lease with Scott's information in there. So this lease mimics the lease that was already in place. It's a 1-year lease that has 3 one-year options to renew, and it's for their space in Hangar 1. And we took this to Airport Authority and also is reviewed by staff and legal, and it's all recommended to approve.
Councilors, any questions on this item?
No.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the lease with Scott Miner and Quality Aircraft Maintenance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve this lease agreement. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the lease agreement is approved. Thank you, Paul. Takes us to item 9, resolutions. Resolution 2019-17, a resolution of the Stillwater City Council in support of the Payne County Certified Work-Ready Communities Initiative. You got a statement on this? Who has a statement on this?
You want to say anything? Are you throwing Rebecca under the bus?
Rebecca, we'd love to hear from you about the Payne County.
We actually, the city, at the request of the chamber, and several businesses here in town, took a look at the Work Ready program, and I'll let Rebecca talk about it, but there was an initial, we think we're really interested in this thing that we could pledge to get involved with, and we did, the city did, because clearly there is a shortage of labor in Stillwater for some occupations, and
Well,
this
thank
would
you for
finish it off.
considering this. So we being a group of us throughout Payne County of both educators, business and industry services, economic developers, coming together to better tell our workforce story so that we can help existing businesses grow as well as attracting new businesses to our area. And a certified work-ready community is certified through ACT. You're familiar with them for the college entrance exams that they have, but they also have a National Career Ready certificate. And this certificate measures an individual's ability to do things in applied math, graphic literacy, and workplace documents. By taking this Work Keys assessment, they get a certificate. It's nationally recognized. It's a portable certificate that says they have achieved a certain level from bronze up to platinum. By being a certified work-ready community, certified by ACT, it says that we have a certain number of individuals in the emerging workforce, which is K through 12, our current workforce, so those individuals working in the community, and then what we would call transitioning workforce, veterans, individuals that may be currently unemployed, or perhaps those who are moving out of incarceration back into the workforce, and they can earn this certificate so that they can better tell employers what they are able to do. So this certification says that we have a workforce with so many that have bronze on up, and then we also have a certain number of employers that recognize what the certificate says and what it means to them in hiring their candidates. So it's a way to really link workforce development to education. It allows us to align economic development needs to our community and to the region, the state as a whole, as well as match individuals job-based, match them into jobs based on their skill level. So we're just seeking, we're going out to all the communities within the county to get resolutions to support it. So far, the city of Perkins has passed their resolution, city of Cushing. As soon as I finish here, I'm headed to city council in Glencoe to do the same thing. So we're just trying to come together as a county to say who we are. We believe this is just the first initiative for other workforce partnership things that we can do within the county.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. If there's no questions at this point, I'll go ahead and read the resolution before we take a motion. Whereas the Payne County Workforce Partnership is comprised of members of both the private and public sector of Payne County, including the Chamber of Commerce, local private industry, Workforce Oklahoma, local municipal leaders, and educational providers who have a mission to give Payne County's workforce a competitive advantage to support and grow existing businesses and attract new businesses by becoming a certified work-ready community. And whereas ACT has developed a certified work-ready communities program for the county level of government for which they are accepting applications, and whereas the Payne County Workforce Partnership has indicated they have submitted an application to join ACT's Certified Workforce Communities Program to be able to provide and implement programs to improve Payne County's workforce, support and enhance existing area businesses, and recruit new businesses to Payne County. And whereas said program will provide many benefits to Payne County residents and businesses, now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Stillwater that it supports the Payne County Workforce Partnership's application to an implementation of the ACT Work Ready Communities Program. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt Resolution 2019-17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that resolution is adopted. Thank you all for your work. I appreciate it. Okay, no ordinance on, I'm sorry, we do have an ordinance on second read. Ordinance number 3438, an ordinance rezoning attractive land addressed as 821 North Main Street from RTM to family and multifamily residential to RSS small lot single family residential district. Councilors.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3438.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is adopted. That takes us down to reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Request an executive session pursuant to 25 OS subsections 307B4 to engage in confidential communications regarding an ongoing investigation of potential litigation with Cedar Creek Farms LLC. It is my opinion that public disclosure of this matter will seriously impair the ability of the City Council to process this claim and/or conduct an investigation and/or prosecutor defend any resulting litigation or proceeding in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Mr. Nickel?
Thank you, Mayor. Citizens have been asking for us to start working on roads, and we are. Crews are currently outperforming the high-density mineral bond project, which is one of our many pavement management projects. The material that is laid on the roads requires a cure time of about 24 hours, weather permitting, so we ask for your patience during this time. Please do not cross barriers or travel on closed roads while they cure. Would remind our viewers and listeners out there that this is part of the pavement management program. We get questions all the time. Why did you do this to what appears to be a perfectly good street? It's to make that street last longer. And the idea is to get to the reconstruction projects later this spring. So a lot of other questions that we're getting right now is the roads around the university are terrible. In general, they're referring
And they
to
are?
University Street. Yes, they are. University Street, Hester, and 4th. They are in bad shape. We are waiting until the heavy equipment is off of those streets that continues to build on the pack, and the music classrooms that will be built soon. I think they've broken ground for that. So you will see those projects start. We hope, Monty's in here, we hope sometime maybe this spring. So as soon as they get off there, the other question you get is, well, why haven't those apartments paid for it? They have. That money's in escrow and will be spent to help rehabilitate those streets. So if you have questions, you can call me or you can call the expert Monty Carnes.
Thanks, Norman. Councilor Zanotti?
Yes, Oklahoma loses a potential of $1,123 in federal funding for every Oklahoman not counted in the 2020 census. Funding is allocated using census data and affects your everyday life, so make sure you're counted accurately. Learn more at PayneCountyCensus.org.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, congratulations to Environmental Programs Manager Chris Franks on his election to serve on the Executive Board of Region 6 Pretreatment Association. As a member of the board, Franks will help the city remain on the forefront of emerging issues in the water treatment industry, enabling the city of Stillwater to more easily network with other agencies and municipalities on the most important and up-to-date issues. I presume that is about water treatment. Read more at stillwater.org/news.
Thank you. Councilor Wedlake?
Yes, sir. The changing markets of recycling in the U.S. have been a hot topic lately. Listen to Waste Management Director Chris Knight discuss these changes and how they may affect Stillwater on episode 31 of the city's podcast, FYI Stillwater. You can also find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the city's website. Or you can stick around a little bit longer for tonight for the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting, which we will be discussing recycling options in depth. So stick around if you're interested.
Lots of information out there. Councilor Jaloski?
Yes, this year's Mummy and Sundance is held on Friday, October 4th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the City of Stillwater Community Center. Tickets are on sale now. They are $25 per couple and $10 for each additional son. Tickets are not available at the door the day of the event, so get them online at tickets.stillwater.org by October 3rd. This makes me a little sad. My little man is not so little anymore and will not want to go to Mummy and Son.
You're
but
never too old
it's
for Mummy and
amazing.
Son.
Everybody else should go.
I want to let you know that in anticipation of another fantastic Cowboy football season, here's a reminder about parking options and game day shuttles. The City of Stillwater and OSU Athletics offer everyone free parking and shuttle service from downtown Stillwater to Boone Pickens Stadium before every home football game. It means you can park downtown, hop on a bus, get a free ride to the stadium.
It's fabulous.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's easy and free.
Only about a 5 to 7 minute wait as the shuttles go through. So if one leaves and you're like, oh no, it's going to take forever, it doesn't.
Excellent. You can go to stillwater.org/news to see the bus route and details and more. This week is also the first Stillwater High School home football game, so go out and support the Pioneers. And my son will be making his first marching band appearance, so it's very exciting in our house to see that happen. So, but yeah, go support the Pioneers.
just shop downtown too, while you wait.
You absolutely should.
Or get a glass of wine.
Park a couple hours before you need to go to the game and go
Coffee.
shopping.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us down to 13, appointments on the Building Trades Board. Make sure I get to the right page here. All right, we have 3 folks on the Building Trades Boards whose terms expired earlier this summer. All 3 would like to be reappointed. We also have 1 vacancy on the Building Trades Board for a home builder. We don't currently have an application on file from someone who meets the home builder requirement for that board. So if you are a home builder and you're interested in being on the Building Trades Board, that helps set policy and review building trades or building issues here in Stillwater, we would certainly encourage you to do that. In the meantime, I will nominate Daryl Crable, Kyle Kelty, and Waylon Shields to be reappointed to the Building Trades Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reappoint those 3 individuals to the Trades Board. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, they are reappointed. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay, that takes us to executive session, so I will recess the Stillwater City Council meeting at this point. Is it recess? Is that the right word? Procedure is a little wonky sometimes. And we will go on to the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for September 9th, 2019. I will call this meeting to order. And we will go to the consent docket, on which we have minutes from our regular meeting from August 19th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. If you guys are our Visit Stillwater visitors, we're not done. Or not Visit Stillwater, I'm sorry, Leadership Stillwater. You guys got to hang around. We got 2 more meetings. They're not sticking around. All right, I'm sorry. The consent docket was approved. That takes us to 5A, no, looking at the wrong thing. Hold on. I'm all confused. That takes us to 5A, bid recommendations for construction contractor for the Central Industrial and Hospital Substations Project, SUA 19-33. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, trustees. Lauren Smith, Electric Utility Director. Staff has been working to acquire equipment and construction for the substation transformer replacement project. Specifications and bid documents for the construction contractor services needed for industrial, central, and hospital were prepared by the project engineer Burns & McDonnell. On 8/21 of 2019, 3 bids were received and opened. These bids were evaluated by Burns & McDonnell and staff. The bid submitted by Brandt Companies LLC meets all bid specifications, making them the lowest responsible bidder. Construction, inspection, and testing services will be necessary to ensure that the construction contractor is following all industrial standards and is following the specifications by the engineer. I have a recommendation. It's rather long, but I'll stop here and take any questions that you may have.
Trustees, any questions? Let's hear your proposal.
Thank you. Staff recommends alternative 1, and that is to award the bid and authorize staff to execute the contract for SUA bid 03-19-20 to the Brandt Companies LLC in the amount of $855,923.15 and authorize expenditures from the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund up to $984,312 by approval of the attached budget amendment, and authorize staff to procure services for construction inspection and testing services in the amount of $57,000 and authorize expenditures for these services from the Electric Rate Stabilization Fund up to $62,700 by approval of the attached budget amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm not sure we have an attached budget amendment in here. Did we? We will have to approve that at some later point.
I
don't see a budget.
I don't have it online.
Come back with that one? Yep. Okay. So we can approve award of the bid and then deal with the other part of it later,
Will that
or no?
work, Melissa? I mean,
If they approve it this evening, I think we can create a budget amendment. I don't know that you need to actually see.
Yeah, I mean, we can
Right.
approve amendment of the budget and then just bring the piece of paper back next time on consent.
Or you will just prepare the budget amendment.
Okay.
It's Because we had that in kind there. of housekeeping
Yeah.
at that point after you've approved the bid.
Okay,
because all that would be left would be to execute the document, and once the council, or excuse me, the trustees approve that, then all that's left is for you to perform
To sign
that, that duty.
okay. All right, so we're not gonna worry about that. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept alternative one.
Second.
Yeah, I just couldn't get a word in there. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve alternative one. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that item's approved. Thank you, Lauren. Item 5B, recycling program options. Mr. McNichol.
Good evening, Norman McNichol. This was originally going to be a very different report than what you're getting tonight, but you'll hear about that as we go through my report. And Chris Franks is here in the room. If I don't get it right, he can back me up. I'm sorry, Chris Knight is here in the room, and he can back me up. Chris may be here. The other Chris may be here too. And I'm sure all of you saw the information on local recycling in the September 6th edition of the News Press. I think the council and the citizens need to know the current state of recycling, and I'm here with a little trepidation because this is a very sacred subject to some people. Nothing in what we say here tonight would indicate that the city is wanting to get out of the recycle business, but we need some facts out there. We have ramped up our social media and have put out a lot of information on recycling both in the state of Oklahoma and nationally in the last few weeks. And it is becoming somewhat of a problem in terms of being able to effectively move material once it has been recycled by our citizens to a proper location. In fact, the matter is you will find that once that material has been recycled, let's just say here in Stillwater, and it makes it to a MRF, which we'll talk about here in a minute, material recovery facility, 30 to 50% of that ends up eventually in a landfill. And that is due to a whole lot of factors. You know, we've raised two generations of people who truly believe recycling is necessary to help our environment. And we believe that recycling is important to our environment. So let me give another couple of definitions before I go on here. Single stream recycling is where different kinds of recyclable material are picked up in one container. The materials are delivered to a materials recovery center for sorting, generally by hand. Sorted means that recyclable materials are individually sorted by category before materials are delivered to a MRF. Baling is the process of compacting and baling recyclable materials similar to an agricultural hay bale. Contamination, any material in the recycle stream not accepted by the MRF. Any contamination in a single stream cart in any part of that can render the entire cart and then sometimes an entire load in our side pickup trucks unacceptable. Stillwater's current MRF is Cedar Creek Farms, and a cost of service study is a consultant that studies the cost to provide services to deal with the 960 tons of solid waste and 1,300 tons of single stream and sorted recyclables. That study is underway, and there's been a partial report to the council about recycling. During the years prior to 2017, most of particularly plastic materials, paper and cardboard, ended up in China. China was a huge recycler, and they used that to manufacture new products. In 2017, they developed what they call green fence laws, and That green fence was meant to keep contaminated recyclables out of the recycle stream. And the United States, the average rate of contamination in any load of recyclables is about 30%. So almost everything we were sending to China was contaminated. So a whole lot of the plastic would get discarded, the paper would get discarded. They didn't go to landfills, and it ended up all over their countryside, and they decided they needed to do something about it. So they virtually cut off almost all, accepting almost all of the United States recycling stream. And during that time, prior to China's green fence laws, very little recyclable material was reused in manufacturing processes here in the United States. There was very little reuse of those things that we put in the stream because it was all going to China. Concurrent to the collapse of the recycling materials market, the oil industry in the U.S. began horizontal drilling, which has made the U.S. independent in oil supplies, with an accompanying reduction in the cost of petroleum products. Petroleum is a big component in plastic, and as a result, it is much cheaper for manufacturers to build new than it is to, or produce new, than it is to produce materials with recycled products. Staff had observed our local MRF had a growing pile of materials that were not hauled away. Staff entered into discussion with employees and the owner of our local MRF and were told that contamination in available markets for the products were causing the issue. The waste management director became so concerned about the issue that we began determining alternatives to the local MRF should the problem continue. Stillwater's geographic location is a significant factor in recycling. There are 4, I believe, maybe 3, major MRFs in the state of Oklahoma. They are located in the metropolitan areas of Tulsa or Oklahoma City. We estimate a cost of $1.1 million to haul our current recycling stream to an alternative MRF. This would require 4 to 5 trips a day. 4 to 5 trips a day to the facility that won our bid. And we did put those bids out. They've been awarded. We've kind of been holding off until we made this report. That cost figure does not include the additional wear and tear on our equipment. A concern about this alternative is the carbon footprint that we would put into the air in hauling these materials to one of the metropolitan areas, as well as the rapid wear on our collection trucks. It'd wear them out 3 times as fast as we currently do. Second alternative discussed by NewGen, who gave a preliminary report on recycling to the council a couple of months ago, is developing our own transfer facility. The cost of a facility and equipment on existing city-owned property is estimated to be about $1.5 million. The benefit of this option is the number of loads to a MRF would be reduced to 2 a week. And that's because the trucks are larger, you can compact the loads, and basically it would be a big ramp that the trucks drive up on, they dump the loads, and it gets shoved off into a basically a big 18-wheeler hopper that could be hauled back and forth. One of the issues with that option is that it would require at least, and Chris will probably sink into the floor when I say this, 1 year to implement, probably closer to 18 months. There's approvals that need to be had and that kind of thing. Right now there's a shortage of the trucks that we need to not only run the routes, but to be able to haul those materials to the metropolitan area. Contracting recycling service with an independent contractor is estimated to cost approximately $1.3 million annually. In addition, it is as likely that any independent contractor would not bid on recycling services unless they could also provide solid waste service. And I did talk with a couple of people who confirmed that we probably would not get a bid from an independent contractor unless we also let them have the balance of our solid waste customers. In current waste management residential bills is $4.68 in fees to process recycling. When the program originated, and we have some people here, I think, tonight that were involved in that, there was $3 per month added to solid waste bills, and some years later it was increased by another $1.68. To implement any of the above options would increase monthly bills to $7.37 a month total for a transfer station and $6.49 for direct hauling. Please note that the transfer fee does not include the $1.5 million for the transfer station facility, which would add another $9.25 a month for a year to pay for the facility. Obviously, that number would go down if you stretched that financing out. Add to the direct hauling option a much faster replacement of the collection fleet, estimated to be 6 trucks a year for an annual cost of $1.68 million, or $10.37 a month, for a total of $16.80 per month for our 13,500 customers. That effectively doubles our current waste management fee, or would effectively cover it. A final option, which nobody in this room wants to hear, would be to landfill the entirety of the recycle stream that we currently are moving. That would actually result in a reduction in your waste management bill of about $2, I believe, or $3. On August 7th, and the reason that we're here tonight talking about this, on August 7th, 2019, Cedar Creek Farms notified the City of Stillwater that they would not process our single-stream recyclables after September 30th, 2019. Cedar Creek Farms has a contract to perform this service for the City of Stillwater through June 30th of 2022. The letter stated our contamination rates were too high, resulting in an inability to effectively sort the recyclables. And I will tell you that in our most recent audit, that our contamination rate was 22%. Please recall that I told you the national rate runs about 30%. Subsequent meeting with Cedar Creek Farms indicated the letter was sent out of frustration due to contamination rates and collapsed markets for recyclable items. The owner requested several items where the city could help the recycling effort. Those items are classify plastic bags, bagged material as non-acceptable items. In other words, if you put a plastic bag, you line your recycle cart with a plastic bag and you put it out to the curb in that manner, that's going to the landfill automatically. Plastic bags are horrible for the environment. They're horrible for the recycle services because they never know what's going to be in that bag when they pop it open. I can tell you that we have confirmed that there has been some pretty nasty stuff that's been placed in those recycled containers inside a plastic bag. There are human beings that sort that stuff, and I can see why that would be pretty nasty. So, deliver non-source separated recyclables only from residential collection routes. In other words, single stream only from residential routes. The other places where we do have collection, the collection center, we sort those items, and so that's easy to comply with. Implement a public information campaign highlighting acceptable items. We are in the process of doing that and actually have been doing it all along. Deliver for processing all acceptable recyclables collected by city departments. There are some city departments that have been selling metal, and I'm pleased at their initiative in trying to improve our revenue stream, but we do have a contract with this business that requires those things to go to them. Replace padlocks on all commercial recycling dumpsters. The reason for that is that there were all kinds of things ending up in those cardboard recycling dumpsters, sheetrock, concrete, a whole lot of things other than cardboard. So the idea is to have a slot where only cardboard can go into the container, and haul or dispose of piled residuals. Weekly audits for contamination, which we readily agreed to because our rates are pretty low compared to other places. and meet within 90 days of this agreement to discuss process of recycling program. And if I can find it here, I want to show you that we have already, this meeting was week before last, John. And, okay, McClenny, how do I get this thing up? There we go. I know that picture isn't very large, but you can see a pretty good pile of material. That was week before last, at the end of the week, because I believe we met on a Thursday. And as of last Friday, it looked like that. That was 419 tons of material that we hauled at the landfill. There were some items removed from that. That was done at a cost of approximately $12,000. A whole lot of that material would have been hauled anyway because it was contaminated, but it was allowed to pile up, and we have an agreement that that will not occur again. And the weekly audits will give us the opportunity to see that that does not happen. We're still doing cart audits, and we're going to have to get tougher with our removal policies probably. We kind of have a 3-strike rule now. We think we need to move to a 2-strike rule. If you're warned once and you do it again, and particularly if it's some of this objectionable material, we pull the cart until they can prove to us that they're going to use it for the intended purpose. As you're aware, for some period of time, we had significant problem with people using it as a second garbage receptacle. Prices for plastic and paper are really low. $2 a ton for paper. Plastic, you generally have to pay to get rid of it. And in those figures that I gave you earlier, I was throwing around $1 million like it was nothing. Our estimated annual revenue from taking those products to a recycler is about $23,800. So it is a huge net loss. We have had, since we started running the social media campaign, we have had several comments on the internet or on our site, a couple of which were, you know, years ago I lived in LA, or I lived in San Diego, or I lived in Dallas, and I'm really disappointed that the city of Stillwater hasn't stepped up their game, because in the previous places that I lived, they took all kinds of plastics. They took plastic bags. They took all of these things. Well, I can tell you from doing research on this entire subject that in the past 2 years there have been literally hundreds of recycle centers shut down in the state of California, hundreds of them. They have also moved to reduce the stream that they're producing, the single source stream, because they can't get rid of, like us, we take 1, 2, and 5 plastics. The other we can't get rid of. So paper's down to $2 a ton. The only thing right now that is really profitable is metal, cans, steel, brass. Those kinds of things are relatively valuable, and cardboard's worth $30 a ton, assuming that it's baled. So other than that, things are not well. And as a result of all of this, and because we don't know what the future holds, our current contractor says that they truly want to enter into negotiations for a new contract before the end of June 30th, 2022. We'll have to see what that holds. There are 2 schools of thought right now nationally about recycling. One is that it's dead and it's never coming back. The other is that it will come back. It's going to take some innovation for it to come back. Somebody's going to have to come up with processes that make the collection and the reuse of those things, once they hit a collection point, more efficient and less costly. The other thing that could happen is that there could be some kind of world crisis, and oil could spike, and those plastic items could be valuable once again. Obviously, we don't want a world crisis. We'd prefer somebody to come up with a really good method of getting rid of them. I will tell you that there are people working on that. A year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, OSU talked to us about they applied for a grant with the Federal Energy Commission. I'd never heard of that particular group, but they applied for a grant where they could produce electricity by burning yard waste. And in the process of burning the yard waste, they could meet California CARB standards. And I'm telling you, those are strict standards. So it was pretty impressive. And they were working on the same process to use plastic. Unfortunately, they did not receive the grant. But it will take probably some kind of innovation like that to get us back into efficient use of recyclable materials. So, because we don't know what the future is going to hold, because this is a multifaceted event, it would be my recommendation to the council that we invite our citizens to volunteer to form a committee to study this whole subject and make recommendations to the council at a future date. And in the meantime, if I've said anything that has caused any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. McNichol. Trustees, any questions at this point?
I think a citizen task force is a fabulous idea, and particularly in light of the, if we continue along some of the recommendations that you gave with the increased prices for customers, how would this task force also consider some accommodation for fixed income or lower income, nonprofit, whatever situations?
Because it was in my notes and I didn't get to it. I don't know. It's
a fabulous piece of the task
right.
force.
I mean, you can't hardly ask somebody to self-identify, and so it is a big issue in a lot of services that the city provides. And you'll probably hear it again on September 23rd when we talk about renewable energy. What do you do about fixed and lower income? I do not know. There's not a great solution in this piece. There may be in renewable energy.
Norman, if we establish this task force soon, would they have the opportunity in the solid waste planning effort to interact with our consultant that's supporting? It seems like an interaction between the task force and not only staff, but also the consultant that's come in with some of these different recommendations and ideas and offering some best practices and case studies from around the country. Certainly that consultant, I would think, would have that expertise and the ability to bring some of those case studies and kind of stories to this task force. With that, I'm trying to think of the timing of all of that.
We have a few.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, we would have time. They're set to give their report in November right now, so we'd have a couple months if we can get the task force together fairly quickly.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
But we can delay that report also. I mean, they were moving it up for us. They're actually set to do it in December, but they were going to move it up in November for us to kind of assist with some of the issues we're having.
It seems like it could be valuable for citizens to have that expertise as they're sitting down, with you guys, and just seems like that expertise could be really good if we can make that work. Not to delay your study.
Yeah,
No, we can make it work.
if you just Google current state of recycling in the United States, it is amazing what you come up with. It is a huge problem nationally and in the state of Oklahoma, and particularly for communities that find themselves in our situation where we are geographically away from the larger sorting facilities.
In the spirit of starting a citizen task force on this, we could jump back to the public comment section of this meeting real quick, because we do have a couple people here who signed up to come speak about this issue. So I'd love to hear their comments at this point or questions that they might have. So Ms. McDonald, did you have comments on the issue? No? Jack, is it Nasworthy?
My name is Jack Nasworthy. I live on West 32nd Avenue. I think the city manager made my case just a moment ago. We have 3 years to figure this out, thanks to this creek place. And recycling doesn't save money. Basically, what he said is we can't make money recycling. So that there's several things that you could do to reduce our cost. One of them, the first one is to lower the cost is by putting everything in one trash can. We'd have to take it to the landfill, but that would reduce the cost of buying. It'd cut a trash can cost in half, plus drivers and trucks in half. Because he just showed you a picture, we hauled trash, $10,000, $12,000 worth of trash. The people that were taking our stuff didn't do it. So we just said, well, put it in one can. Okay, safety with one can. Have you driven up the streets after they've emptied the trash cans? They're laying all over the gutters and the drainage and everything, and you can't even hardly drive. At 8 o'clock in the morning, there's cars passing on both sides, and there's a truck there, etc. There's litter all over the place because it blows out when they empty it into the truck. The reduction of space on the road is just, it's unbelievable. And I just think that he quoted a price on the independent service. I think that's the only way to go to get us out of picking up trash. And I would just like to see us get out of this problem, because we're too small a city to deal with all of these major, and it takes so much city, so many people to make it affordable to have a recyclable built in the house. One of the suggestions I have, I recently drove out into West Texas. We could put a landfill in West Texas. We could put a freight line from a central location that would maybe take a trip out there once a month to put it in the landfill. The landfill is the only solution, or the independent service is the only solution that you can look at. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Excuse me. Yeah, it certainly sounds like there's a, well, we've talked about this, and we'll continue to talk about it. We need to figure out what we're going to do, and establishing a citizen task force to start sorting through, pardon the pun, all those options, I think, is the best way to go. So I assume from a staff perspective, you guys can start that process without further input from us at this point?
We can. We would like to solicit those people to serve on it, but we would also like to put, because there's kind of a time crunch, we'd kind of like to put a deadline of maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And these people would, like other task force or committees, just sign up to be a member of a board on the city.
So online.
Go online.
Yes,
They
can
would
sign
fill out
up
that
online.
application.
There's,
Yeah.
boards and committee application site on the website. And if you can't find it, give us a call.
How many?
Lucky number 7.
Works for me.
7.
Picking that out of the air.
Even 12.
Yeah, I mean, I expect there would be probably a pretty broad interest in being involved. And again, this is kind of an idea generation and brainstorming and that sort of thing, more than it's having to kind of come up with a specific policy. And so a bigger number is not quite as unmanageable when you're in those. So yeah, 12 maybe I think would be a good number. I guess we'll see how many apply, but certainly we'll get that out there as soon as we can and let people know to let us know what they think. It's a community issue, a community problem. There's going to be a lot of opinions about it, about what the best way to do it is, and we need to understand what that is.
So I just think we maybe want to just make clear nothing is changing right now in terms of rates or your ability to recycle. We will be talking often and loudly about how you recycle and recycling responsibly and making sure that your carts include only those materials that can be recycled. I think I need to probably audit my household, even though I think we're really good at it. We should probably make sure, I think just understanding if labels need to come off and caps go in, I would hope that that's part of our education, because I feel like I'm a pretty good recycler, but maybe don't know all of those things either. But nothing's changing in terms of costs or your ability to recycle right now. Just we want you to recycle well.
Our marketing department just put finishing touches on a piece that will be airing soon, and I know that we have other social media items going out. The number one thing that we would like to get across to people right now is plastic bags. Get them out. They only go in the trash. Nothing plastic, no film, no nothing, because that dooms everything you put in there to the landfill, and it completely defeats the purpose of attempting to recycle.
There are options for if you're recycling your Walmart bags. Well, we don't want you to recycle your Walmart. If you want to reuse Walmart bags, you can take them. I know Our Daily Bread takes those, and I think Walmart still has a container there for those as well. So that's 2 options. I know Our Daily Bread also takes egg cartons as well. So maybe we need to look at the reduce and reuse side a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
I think the reduce side is one that we really need to work on as a culture.
And on a national level, just final thing, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Sure.
What we manufacture these things out of, we need to really take a look at our packaging on a national level, because if that could be reduced by half, it would make an incredible impact on the waste.
Yeah, it gets a lot of the cities around the country that have moved to limit their plastic bags and that sort of thing have certainly gotten a lot of ridicule, and our state legislature has decided we can't do that even if we want to. That's right. But that's why they do these things. That's why reducing the actual amount of plastic your community is putting out there is important, because we can't do anything else with it. Once it's produced and once it's out in the world, it's not going anywhere. And so, figuring out ways that we can reduce our use of those things is going to be, I think, the long-term key. So we'll definitely have that as part of our discussion going forward. All right.
I would like to thank Mr. Knight. He has worked day and night, almost.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any announcements or reports from officers and boards for the trustees of the Utilities Authority? No? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
We're waiting. We're waiting.
Me second. Yes, please.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the Utilities Authority meeting. Please vote.
Thanks, guys.
With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Utilities Authority is now adjourned. That takes us to the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting for September 9, 2019. I'll call this meeting to order. On the consent docket, we have minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. On general orders, item A, the fiscal year 2019 end of year report from Visit Stillwater. Christy Morrison. Or Chris. Chris Norris. Thank you guys for staying through the recycling discussion.
I hope you guys are on your game on this. Anyway, I'm Chris Norris. I'm the chairman of the Visit Stillwater Board of Directors. To give you a little bit of an update from the fiscal year 2019, we forwarded our report to the city manager at the end of July. We outlined the measurables within our fiscal year business plan. As you know, we worked with the mayor, the city attorney, and city manager on a revised professional agreement that included 2 attachments, the scope of services and the deliverables. Our marketing and communication activities, we continue to move on those. Our monthly videos are gaining popularity in and out of town. We've promoted 1,200 events through our website, social media, e-newsletter, and monthly In the Know postcard. We've maintained a consistent presence on live local TV, radio, and we write a monthly column for the Stillwater News Press. Obviously, our sales team works closely with meeting and event planners, and last year coordinated over 80 hotel room blocks that equaled a little over 7,000 room nights. And that's really not inclusive entirely, because in that you have a lot of stragglers that come in with these groups that have their own personal preferences of hotels and points and things like that, and they will scatter from those room blocks. So that number would be significantly higher, we think, if we could get an accurate count, which we just can't. We had almost 40 new events for our community. Primarily, these events happen at the Payne County Expo Center. Some of those were the International Brangus Breeders Leadership, the Oklahoma Seminole Cattle Association, the Senior Professional Bull Riders Rodeo, which I'm looking forward to being on here in a couple of years, the Oklahoma Junior Cattlemen's Association Junior Livestock Show. We had 4 American Junior Boar Goat shows and sales. You can't make this up. We had 2 Rabbit Breeders Association shows, 2 cat shows that moved from Tulsa also. We provided services in the form of marketing and promoting, registering information, volunteering, coordinating local resources of our various groups, including the Blind Boys of Alabama performance. These were all new. Payne County Pride, Up With People, Leadership Oklahoma, All Class Reunion and Fall Forum, the Oklahoma Board of Attorneys Board of Governors, the NCAA Softball Regional, and the Epic Performance Athletics that just happened recently. We've had a huge increase for a request of our visitors guide. We are increasing production from 75,000 to 100,000 copies. They're distributed in some of these following places: the Oklahoma Visitor Information Centers around the state, the Big 12 Conference Cities Visitors Information Centers, certified folder in southern Kansas, western Arkansas, and throughout Oklahoma. We're at registration tables at locally held events. We're at Oklahoma State's campus, and then over 200 local distribution points. We've recorded over 12,000 individuals who have stopped by the Visitor Center last year compared to 8,500 the year before. We provided marketing for the Stillwater Regional Airport, valued at over $92,000 for the last fiscal year. We met with film industry location scout and director producer in February who had ties to the movie Stillwater, and we have already seen and heard about actor Matt Damon being here locally. We have a quarterly hotel luncheon that we feature a guest speaker. And we have that, obviously, with our hotels. And we have a really important one coming up Wednesday, where we will have a representative from the Oklahoma Tax Commission come in and really firm up tax-exempt status for guests and groups that want to stay in Stillwater. It's a little bit confusing, and we are really excited about the Oklahoma Tax Commission being involved in this collection, and with them now being able to put on a little bit of a seminar on what to look for, and we can get all the hotels playing on the same field as far as what is and isn't tax exempt. We're also in the 6th year of coordinating a monthly Market Stillwater meeting. It brings together OSU athletics and community leaders to ensure we're providing the ultimate visitor experience. And we also intend to semi-monthly downtown Stillwater meetings to provide assistance and resources. We started discussions, obviously, with Mary Main Street coordinators to determine how Visit Stillwater can help in that. And all in all, it was an exciting year. And I do want to say, as the chairman and then as a board member, I think I can speak, I know I can speak for myself and the staff, that I think we learned an awful lot last year. And I think it was helpful. I know it was helpful to us. And I think I think a lot of us are a lot more on the same page. And I hope y'all feel the same way. I know I dealt with some of y'all individually and as a group. And I appreciate your listening to us and your thoughts and your feedback. So that is it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Sure.
We appreciate it. Trustees, any questions for Chris at this point?
For Chris or Christy, I found it interesting that Visitors Guide, I serve on the Guthrie Chamber Board, and their chamber guide, it increased this last year too. I mean, it's funny that we keep thinking that the print is going out and that people just want online, but it is amazing the impact of putting that visitor guide in someone's hand. They want that.
Those
It's
things
huge.
need to be we find they need to be tangible. There's still a lot of retailers putting out catalogs, as I'm sure you're aware, and it's because they get a return on that. It's much more when you have a tangible in your hand, it makes you look at stuff versus scanning through something. So I think I think it has its place, and I do think that place is in this.
I was helping out at move-in day at OSU this year, and a kid came up and asked me where he should go eat lunch. And there were visitor guides on all the group tables of where we were doing move-in, and so I grabbed one and circled a few options for him, and he came back with his bag of Chinese food, I think. He went to Golden Dragon. But, so yeah, I mean, it was great to see him there, and lots of people picked him up. So.
Well, I agree too. I think this last year there was a lot of things that both entities learned, and I'm hoping the communication is I think it is better. I've appreciated Visit Stillwater's input, and I think we have a meeting this week on the Mary Main Street, and so I look forward to this next year, and we have a great place. And I think all of us working together to talk about what a great community this is to be a part of and visit and have your event, I think is critical, so it's good.
I'll just say that the kudos on the annual report this year. I mean, it's so nice to see things somewhere. I'm a big tables guy. Prose takes me too much time. I'm a slow reader. So anytime I can see things summed up in tables or graphs or just those numbers crunched in, that is certainly appreciated. So
That's our staff.
Yeah, very very well done.
All right.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thanks for being here. Sorry to keep you to the end. You didn't have anything else to do. All right. Is there any comments or questions on announcements from officers and boards? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the Stillwater Economic Development Authority. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, SEDA is now adjourned. I'll reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting at item 14, executive session. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
Motion to enter executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter executive session as the Stillwater City Council. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, we'll now enter executive session.